In this room there is no day or night. There is only the eternal, unchanging cycle of fluid circulation, the measured hum of pumps, and the cold, sterile glow of lumen strips embedded in the ceiling. The air here does not move, it is stagnant, saturated with smells that cause instinctive rejection in any healthy human. The sweetish scent of recycled nutrients, the sharp chemical burn of antiseptics, and a thin, barely perceptible note of rotting organics that even the most perfect filtration system cannot hide. In the center of this medical crypt, suspended on chains and power cables, hangs a glass cylinder, an amniotic tank. Inside, floating in a murky, yellowish liquid, is what was once a man. This is a Princeps, or at least what remains of him. The body submerged in the solution is a pitiful sight. It is grotesquely small, shriveled, like a fetus removed from the womb too late or too early. The skin has taken on the shade of old parchment, pale grey, translucent, through which a web of atrophied veins shows. There are no limbs. Where legs should be, there remain only neatly sutured surgical stumps, ending just below the pelvis. The arms are amputated at the elbow, and the remaining parts of the shoulders are pitted with sockets for neural connections. He does not float freely, he is crucified on technology. Dozens of tubes enter his stomach, chest and throat, supplying oxygen and nutrient paste, removing waste products. Thick bundles of wires are screwed directly into the base of the skull and along the spine, forming a steel crest sticking out of his back. His eyes are closed, eyelids fluttering in REM sleep. From his mouth, held wide open by a retractor, trails a corrugated breathing tube. Around the tank, in total silence, servitors work. These are faceless drones, lobotomized. Cyborgs devoid of consciousness. Their movements are smooth and mechanical. One of them, with a multi-jointed manipulator instead of a right hand, wipes the tank's glass, clearing condensation. Another reads readings from life support monitors, its optical lenses soullessly scanning parameters, pulse, neurotransmitter levels. Solution density. To them, the creature in the jar is not a hero, not the commander of a god machine. It is simply a biological component requiring maintenance, a replacement cartridge for a doomsday weapon. Amniotic immersion technology is neither a whim nor a punishment. It is a harsh necessity for those who have dedicated their lives to piloting senior-class titans. Connection to the machine. God requires sacrifice, and the first sacrifice is always the body. It is not just about injuries sustained in battle. The Princeps' main enemy is time and gravity. A human connected to a Titan via a mind impulse unit experiences sensory overload of an incredible scale. Their mind expands, encompassing a hull 50 meters high. They feel the armor as skin, the plasma reactor as a heart. When the link is broken and consciousness returns to the fragile human shell, the shock can be fatal. Over time, the body begins to reject reality. Muscles atrophy because the brain forgets how to use them. Preferring the Titan's hydraulics, bones lose density, becoming brittle as glass. Gravity becomes a killer. For an old Princeps, just sitting in a chair is torture that breaks the spine. Therefore, they are placed in tanks. Amniotic fluid is a complex chemical cocktail that sustains life, suppresses pain, and most importantly, creates a weightless environment. In this solution, a Princeps can exist for decades, never leaving the capsule. The tank becomes his home, his armor, and his coffin. Many Princeps of the Legio Titanicus spend the last 100 or 200 years of their lives in this state, disconnecting from the systems only to die. Consciousness returns to the creature in the tank slowly, in jerks, as if surfacing from black oil. His name is Cassian. Once he was a tall man capable of running a marathon. He remembers the taste of wine, remembers the touch of wind on his face, remembers the weight of a bolt pistol in his hand. But these memories have faded like old bleached picts. Now his reality is an itch, an unbearable phantom itch in legs he hasn't had for half a century. It feels as though his feet are burning with fire, though the nerve endings were removed long ago. Cassian tries to move, but the fluid dampens any motion. He feels like a pickled embryo. Pathetic, a thought races through his head. He has no voice, the larynx has atrophied, vocal cords removed as unnecessary. He can only speak through vox synthesizers when connected to the system. Now he is mute. He opens his eyes. The fluid blurs his vision, turning the world behind the glass into a set of murky blobs. He sees the red robes of tech priests entering the chamber. He sees the servitors. He feels a pang of self-pity, but immediately crushes it with iron will. Pity is a feeling of the flesh, and flesh is weak. He hates this state, this limbo. Here he is no one, a piece of meat floating in chemicals. A helpless stump that a servitor could accidentally kill simply by mixing up the dosage of the nutrient blend. But he knows what comes next. Soon this tank will be disconnected from stationary systems. He will be loaded onto a grav platform. He will be carried through corridors like a precious relic and inserted into the chest of a god. There, inside the reactor, he will have legs again, multi-ton pistons capable of crushing a tank. He will have arms, cannons capable of vaporizing a city. He will have a voice, the roar of sirens that bursts eardrums. For the sake of that moment, it is worth enduring the humiliation of being human. Why does the Imperium make such sacrifices? Why not use artificial intelligence? It is forbidden by law. Iron men, abominable intelligence. This is the greatest heresy that nearly destroyed humanity in the dark age of technology. A machine cannot have its own will. A machine must have a soul, and that soul must be human. A Princeps is not a pilot in the conventional sense. He does not pull levers. He becomes the machine. Through sockets in the spine and cerebral cortex, his consciousness merges with the Titan's machine spirit. It is a symbiosis. The Titan's spirit is a predatory, ancient, quasi-sentient entity. It is full of rage and the desire to destroy. If an unprepared human is connected to it, their brain will simply burn out in a second, unable to withstand the mental pressure. Or worse, the machine spirit will consume their personality, turning the Titan into a mindless berserker. Only people with exceptional willpower, who have passed the most brutal selection and decades of training, are capable of curbing this beast. They must constantly dominate the machine, impose their will upon it, force it to obey. This is a mental struggle that does not cease for a second during piloting. It is this struggle that burns out their nervous system. It is this that turns their bodies into withered husks. The Princeps gives his life, drop by drop, so that the machine serves humanity. It is martyrdom stretched over centuries. A Magos biologist enters the chamber. His steps are heavy. His robe conceals multiple mechanical legs. He approaches the control console of Cassian's tank. The priest's long, multi-jointed fingers run over the runes on the terminal. The fluid in the tank begins to bubble. Forced circulation pumps engage, changing the lighting color shifts from soothing blue to alarming amber. Cassian feels the pressure change. His heart, what remains of his heart, amplified by pacemakers, begins to beat faster. Thump, thump, thump. He knows this rhythm. It is the rhythm of war. The Magos leans toward the glass. His face is hidden behind a rebreather mask and a cluster of oculars. But his voice, amplified by speakers, penetrates through glass and water, vibrating in the Princeps' skull. Cassian Dracos, status, awakening initiated. The words sound dry, devoid of emotion. Protocol litany of iron activated. Preparation for transport to Titan sarcophagus. Cassian tries to nod, but his head only twitches slightly in the water. Inside his mind he smiles, not a human smile but a predatory grin. Finally, servitors disconnect the external power hoses. The tank seals itself. The grav platform beneath him comes alive with a low hum, lifting a ton of glass, fluid and flesh off the floor. The lights in the chamber flicker. The world narrows to the size of the capsule. The journey from the hell of infirmity to the heaven of omnipotence has begun. And the only thought beating in Cassian's fading human consciousness sounds like a prayer. Glory to the Omnissiah. The flesh is weak, but I am wrath. The sound arrives before anything happens. It is not even sound in the conventional sense of human physiology. It is a vibration, an infrasonic tremor born somewhere deep within the planet's tectonic plates, passing through the foundation of the hangar cathedral and rising upwards, vibrating the bones of every living being within a kilometer radius. Dust that has lain on the Gothic arches near the ceiling for centuries begins to slowly drift down, creating an effect of grey snow. We are at the foot of a mountain. Looking up, the gaze meets an endless wall of riveted adamantium stretching into the darkness of the vaults. These are the legs of a warlord-class Titan. From this angle, from an ant's perspective, they seem like pillars supporting the heavens. Every bolt on the shin armor plate is the size of a human head. Every hydraulic hose is as thick as an ogrin's torso. The metal is scarred, deep furrows from macro-shell impacts, melted patches from lance beams that failed to penetrate the defense, but left their marks like tattoos of glory. Around these steel columns moves a procession. From above, it resembles a stream of red mercury. Hundreds of tech priests, adepts and servitors circle the Titan in a complex geometric dance. They are singing. But this is not human singing. It is binary cant, a grinding, rhythmic stream of digital data broadcast through vox grills. Thousands of voices merge into a single drone, like the sound of a swarm of angry hornets. They swing huge, heavy censers on chains. Thick, oily smoke of sacred incense mixed with coolant vapors bursts from the vents. This fog envelops the giant's legs, turning the hangar into a mystical vision from the nightmares of ancient terror. In the center of the procession, on an anti-grav platform, floats a sarcophagus. Inside it, in murky amniotic fluid, drifts Princeps Cassian. Through the glass, he sees this world distorted, stretched. To him, the priest's chanting is the distant roar of the surf. But the vibration, he feels the vibration even through the fluid. It resonates with the stumps of his nerves. The Titan knows he is here. The Titan smells him. The platform slowly rises toward the giant's chest. There, in the center of the armored torso, the diaphragm of the main airlock opens. It looks like the gaping maw of a leviathan, spewing blinding light and steam. This is the entrance to the Holy of Holies, the entrance to the heart of the machine. What is a Titan? To the uninitiated, it is simply a very large walking tank, a complex mechanism controlled by a computer. But in the world of Warhammer, technology is not sterile. Every machine has a soul, a machine spirit, or animus. A lasgun spirit is simple and obedient, like a dog's. A Lehman Russ tank is stubborn and reliable, like an ox's. But a Warlord-class Titan's machine spirit is an entity of an entirely different order. It is an ancient predatory intellect. It is not artificial intelligence in our understanding. AI is forbidden under pain of death. It is rather an imprint of thousands of battles, an alloy of programming code and quasi-mystical energy accumulated over centuries. The Titan's spirit remembers all its previous Princeps. It stores echoes of their rage, their fear, their triumphs. It possesses character. Some Titans are noble and stoically endure damage. Others are bloodthirsty beasts that try to seize control and trample everything in their path, including allies. When a Princeps connects to a Titan, he does not sit behind a steering wheel. He enters a cage with a tiger. He must subjugate this ancient entity to his will, force it to cooperate. If the Princeps' will is weak, the Titan will consume his mind, turning the human into a mad appendage, screaming in the void, while the machine wreaks slaughter at its own discretion. This is called the merge, and it is the most dangerous part of the ritual. Many candidates have burned alive simply by trying to touch the mind of the god machine. The platform with the sarcophagus floats inside the hull. Here inside, the noise changes. The hum of chanting outside is muffled by thick armor, but it is replaced by another sound, a deep, rhythmic pulse. It is the beating of the Titan's heart, the plasma reactor. A Magos Dominus, the chief tech priest of the ritual, stands on the gantry in front of the reactor chamber. His robe is embroidered with golden schematics, his face hidden behind a skull-shaped mask. He raises his rod of office, the Omniscient Axe, and strikes the deck with it. "Initiate awakening protocol." His voice booms through speakers, drowning out the hum. "Wake the sleeper, feed the hungry, plasma to plasma, spirit to spirit." Acolytes begin turning huge valves, opening fuel lines. Superheated plasma, a liquid substance the color of an angry sun, begins to flow in transparent pipes as thick as trees. The temperature in the hall instantly jumps 20 degrees. The air begins to shimmer with heat. Cassian, inside his sarcophagus, sees his capsule being wheeled to the interface socket. His heart pounds, fear mixes with ecstasy. He feels the presence of Sanctus Ira. It feels like a heavy, oppressive stare at the back of his head. The Titan is waking up, and it is displeased at being woken. It wants blood. "Calm down," Cassian whispers mentally, though not yet connected. "I brought you war. I brought you prey." Assistants secure the sarcophagus in the cradle. Heavy magnetic locks snap shut with a clang like a gunshot. Now there is no way back. The sarcophagus has become part of the Titan. Tech priests connect the main reactor power cables. Sparks the size of fireworks shower the floor, burning through the metal grating, but no one pays attention. This is sacred fire. The plasma reactor of a Warlord-class Titan is a miracle of lost technology. Essentially, it is a miniature star held in place by magnetic fields. Unlike starship reactors, which are hidden deep in the bowels of the hull, a Titan's reactor is right behind the crew's back. This makes piloting the machine an act of constantly balancing on the edge of catastrophe. The power of this device is such that it could power a hive city for a year, or release all that energy in a single shot from the turbo laser destructor, a monstrous weapon on the Titan's arm, capable of vaporizing a fortress along with the mountain it stands on. But this power has a price. If the magnetic containment fields weaken by even a fraction of a percent, if the Princeps overloads the system in the heat of battle, the reactor won't just shut down. It will explode with the force of a tactical nuclear warhead. This is called a reactor meltdown. In that moment, the Titan turns into a second sun on the battlefield, incinerating its crew, its enemies, and its allies within a kilometer radius. This is why tech priests treat the reactor startup with such fanatical awe. They are not just turning on an engine, they are persuading a star not to kill them. Every prayer, every rune inscribed on the reactor casing is an additional layer of protection. A psychological and mystical barrier between fragile human flesh and all-consuming fire. The light inside the hangar changes. Lumen lamps die, unable to compete with the intensifying glow emanating from the vents. On the Titan's back, from below, from the feet, tech priests see the eyes on the machine's back. Heat exhaust nozzles begin to glow with unbearable blue light. The hum grows into a roar. It is the sound of intake air. The Titan takes its first breath. Supercharger turbines spin up to the speed of sound, sucking in the hangar's atmosphere to cool the superheated core. Cassian feels the final jolt. The God Needle, the main neuroconnector, enters the back of his head through the sarcophagus port. Pain blinds him. It is like molten lead being poured into the brain. His scream drowns in the amniotic fluid. Air bubbles burst from the breathing tube. But then the pain disappears. The sarcophagus disappears. The hangar disappears. His infirm body disappears. Instead, he feels plasma flowing through his veins. He feels his skin stretching as it cools. He feels the weight of megabolters on his shoulders. His vision expands. He sees the thermal signatures of the tech priests below. Tiny, warm specks. He sees the structural integrity of the hangar walls. He sees data streams running through the noosphere. He is no longer Cassian. He opens his true eyes, giant photo lenses on the Titan's head. Two searchlights slice through the smoke and darkness of the hangar, illuminating the figures of people below with merciless, cold light. The war horn comes alive. This sound is a challenge to creation. Windows in the cathedral's upper tiers shatter in a rain of shards. Tech priests fall prostrate, covering their audio senses. The god has awakened, and the first thing it feels is wrath. The light goes out. The last thing Cassian's human eyes see through the glass of the amniotic tank are the armored shutters of the cradle closing. The outside world is cut off with a heavy final clang, like the sound of a coffin lid falling. Absolute darkness sets in. And in this darkness, only the sound of his own accelerated heartbeat, amplified by the acoustics of the confined space and the bubbling of the fluid in which he floats, are heard. But the silence does not last long. Mechanisms inside the cradle come alive. The hiss of pneumatics and the whirring of servo motors lowering the contact frame over the Princeps head are heard. This is not medical equipment. This is a torture device elevated to the rank of a relic. From above, out of the capsule's darkness, descends the neural crown, a construct of black iron and gleaming copper studded with dozens of needles. Cassian knows what is about to happen. He has gone through this 1,000 times, but it is impossible to get used to. The body, even one as maimed and atrophied as his, possesses an instinct for self-preservation. It wants to shrink away, to hide, to swim to the bottom of the tank. But he is paralyzed by restraints. He is open. He is a sacrifice on the altar. The needles touch the scalp. They are cold. These are monomolecular filaments capable of piercing steel without dulling. A second of delay. The servitor anesthesiologist injects a mixture of stimulants and painkillers into the solution, but this only dulls the physical pain. Mental shock cannot be dulled. The actuators fire in sync. The needles pierce the skin, pass through the skull bone. Entry points have long turned into non-healing ports and plunge into the soft, wet tissue of the cerebral cortex. This is not just an injection, this is violation. Cassian opens his mouth in a silent scream. His lungs fill with fluid, gas bubbles burst out, but there is no sound. His body arches in a spasm, pulling taut the life support cables. In this moment, he is not a Princeps, he is just a human, whose mind is being pierced by red-hot knitting needles. But it is in this pain that a god is born. The Mind Impulse Unit technology is one of the darkest secrets of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It is not just a virtual reality helmet or a neural interface. It is a direct physical fusion. The human brain is an amazingly complex biocomputer, but it evolved to control 2 arms and 2 legs. It is not adapted to control a 60-meter nuclear reactor, void shields, and weapons capable of erasing mountains. The MIU solves this problem in a barbaric but effective way. It bypasses the sensory organs. Eyes are no longer needed. The visual cortex receives a signal directly from the Titan's photolenses. Ears are not needed. The auditory nerve connects to audio sensors. But the price of this connection is monstrous. The MIU needles physically rewrite neural pathways. With each connection, the human personality is erased, giving way to machine code. This is called the merge. If the link is severed abruptly, the Princeps's brain will turn to mush, unable to withstand the backlash of data. If one remains connected too long, the human forgets who they are and dissolves into the machine spirit, becoming a ghost in the shell. That is why Princeps are a caste of the doomed. They know that one day they will plug in and never be able to unplug, becoming part of the Titan forever. Silence explodes. It is not a sound, it is a tsunami. The second the contacts close, the barrier between Cassian's mind and the logic cores of Sanctus Ira crumbles. Darkness disappears. In its place comes light, blinding white light of data streams. Millions of lines of code, thousands of parameters, core temperature 3000 Kelvin. Hydraulic pressure right leg, nominal, fuel level 98%. External temperature 18 degrees, wind speed 3 meters per second. But Cassian does not read this data, he feels it. He feels the wind on his skin, though his skin is a meter of ceramite armor. He feels the heat of the reactor in his belly. He feels the weight of a building on his shoulders. His consciousness expands at the speed of an explosion. From a pitiful, small point in the cranium, it swells, filling the entire volume of the colossal machine. His stumps disappear. Instead, he has legs, powerful steel capable of crushing rocks. His arms elongate, turning into gun barrels. He takes a breath, but he does not breathe with lungs. He sucks in air with huge turbines on his back. Ecstasy. This feeling is stronger than any narcotic. The sensation of limitless power. A second ago he was a cripple locked in a jar. Now he is an avatar of destruction. I see. Cassian's thought rumbles like thunder. I feel. But he is not alone here. Deep in this ocean of data, there is something else. Ancient, dark, hungry, the machine spirit of Sanctus Ira. It wakes up. It feels an intruder in its head. It is like meeting a giant predator in a dark cave. The Titan growls. A mental growl that would stop a normal man's heart. It tests Cassian for strength. It presses on him with its will, trying to subjugate, to turn him into an obedient slave. Cassian does not retreat. He meets this growl with his own mental scream. "Obey," he commands. "I am your mind. You are my body. We are one." The struggle lasts a fraction of a second, but in mental space it seems like hours. Wills clash, spark, and finally intertwine. The Titan acknowledges the master. The growl changes to a satisfied hum. "We," whispers the machine. "We," agrees the man. The main side effect of full immersion is pain synesthesia. Source: Princeps Training Manual. Many ask, why might a Titan retreat under fire? Does the machine care? No, the machine does not care, but the pilot cares. The MIU system transmits hull damage directly to the pain centers of the Princeps brain. This is done intentionally. Pain is the best alarm signal. If a Princeps saw damage only as red numbers on a screen, he might ignore them, get carried away by the fight, and lose the machine. But when a missile hit to the shoulder feels like your arm is being ripped off alive, you react. Instantly, instinctively. When void shields overload under laser battery fire, the Princeps feels like his skin is being flayed. When armor is pierced, he feels a penetrating wound in his own guts. Piloting a Titan in battle is torture. The Princeps must maintain composure, tactical thinking, and control over the machine's spirit, while his brain screams in pain as if he is being burned at the stake. This is why many old Princeps go mad. Their minds simply cannot withstand the endless cycle of phantom deaths. The merge is complete. The personality of Cassian Dracos has dissolved. The personality of Sanctus Ira has changed. A new being is born, a creature of flesh and steel with two hearts, one biological, the other nuclear. Inside the command deck, outside the capsule, Moderati see static electricity discharging across the tank. The fluid glows from within. Readings on monitors stabilize in the green zone. Neurosynchronization 100%, reports the tactical Moderati. Spirit is calm. We are ready. The voice that comes from the Vox speakers does not belong to a human. It is a low, vibrating bass, in which the grinding of metal and the hum of plasma can be heard. Systems, nominal, it utters. Weapons, online, reactor, sings. The giant head of the Titan in the hangar slowly turns from left to right. Neck servos groan, shedding centuries of stiffness. Huge photolenses change color from cold blue to aggressive, combat red. "Open the gates," commands the voice. "We go for a walk." The massive armored gates of the hangar cathedral begin to part, letting in the light of an alien, toxic sun and the howl of the wind. The Titan takes its first step. The floor shudders. The world outside does not yet know what awaits it. Forget what it means to see. Human vision is a pathetic, primitive mechanism. Photons strike the wet, imperfect lens of the eye, irritating nerve endings so the brain can construct a murky, two-dimensional picture. It is the view of a worm crawling in the mud. What is happening to Cassian now defies description in biological terms. When Sanctus Ira's systems reach full power, the darkness of the amniotic tank doesn't just disappear, it explodes into a supernova. The world ceases to be a picture in front of the eyes. The world becomes a sphere, the center of which is the Princeps mind. This is the manifold, a sensory dome of omniscience. Cassian does not look at the hangar walls. He sees through them. Reality delaminates. Physical matter, the stone of the walls, the steel of the bulkheads, turns into translucent wireframe meshes glowing with cold neon light. He sees the structural integrity of every beam. He sees the stress in the metal of the gates. Over the geometry, a thermal spectrum is overlaid. The tech priests and servitors scurrying below are no longer people to him. They are flickering red and orange clusters of heat, tiny sparks of life that he can extinguish with a single mental impulse. He sees the blood flow in their veins. He sees their cybernetic implants working, like small knots of cold blue electricity. But the most intoxicating thing is the wind. Outside the hangar, behind thick walls, a dust storm rages. An ordinary person would hear the howl of the wind. Cassian feels it. Sensors on the Titan's outer hull turn the impacts of sand grains into tactile sensations. It feels to him as if the wind is caressing his own skin, but not soft human skin, rather a hard, impenetrable hide of ceramite. He feels atmospheric pressure as a weight on his shoulders, pleasant and light. This is the feeling of omnipotence, intoxication with scale. His body now weighs 2,500 tons, and he feels every gram of this mass as his own muscles. How does a human control a mountain of metal without windows? The answer lies in two concepts, the noosphere and the manifold. The noosphere is the Adeptus Mechanicus's internet, but elevated to the absolute. It is a constant stream of data surrounding any Imperial technology. To a priest of Mars, the world looks like a golden rain of numbers and codes overlaid on reality. The manifold is the combat version of the noosphere, available only to Princeps. It is full sensory immersion. In early, more primitive machines, like Imperial knights or tanks, the pilot looks at screens or holograms. In a Warlord-class Titan, screens are an atavism, a backup system in case of catastrophic failure. The Princeps wears the Titan. Auspex's radars become his ears, giving 360-degree awareness for tens of kilometers. Target cogitators, targeting systems, become his eyes, capable of spotting a fly at shooting distance. The windows in the Titan's cockpit, the eyes on the head, are actually thick armored lenses covering sensor clusters. If a Princeps looked through them with human eyes, he would see only a narrow sector in front of him. The manifold gives him the God's eye view, 360 degrees simultaneously, in all spectra, from infrared to ultraviolet and radiation background. Reactor stable. Output 40% power. Cassian's thought is instantly translated into binary code and broadcast across the systems. He does not need to open his mouth. His moderati, assistants sitting below in the cockpit, now look to him like glowing nodes in his own nervous system. He feels their fear, their concentration. They are his fingers, his reflexes. Activate void shields, first layer, he commands. He feels the shield generators on his back, where a human has shoulder blades, begin to hum. Around his body, an invisible force field unfurls. To Cassian, it feels like a cool, electrified veil settling on his skin. Now he is invulnerable. No rain, no wind, no stray shell will touch his armor. He shifts his gaze to his hands. On the right, a turbo laser destructor. On the left, a power fist. In the manifold, they glow with the gold of readiness. He moves his fingers. Outside, with a crash capable of deafening an elephant, the giant fingers of the power fist clench and unclench. How blind we were, thinks Cassian, remembering his human vision. We looked at the world through a keyhole and called it life. He recalls with contempt his old body, left floating in the tank. That piece of meat is merely an anchor, necessary so the soul does not fly off into the warp. True life is here in the data streams. Here colors are brighter, here sounds are cleaner. Here there is no arthritis pain, no shortness of breath. There is only the purity of mathematics and kinetic energy. How does a brain cope with controlling a body that has 2 legs but 4 guns and a reactor on its back? The secret lies in somatic projection. The MIU tricks the brain into believing the Titan is the human body. Mechanicus neurosurgeons redraw the neural body map in the cerebral cortex, the sacred geometry of self. When a Princeps wants to take a step, he doesn't think, increase hydraulic pressure in piston alpha 9 by 40%. He simply thinks, step forward. And the machine spirit, using subconscious impulses, executes the complex sequence of actions to move thousands of tons of metal. When a Princeps wants to fire a shoulder weapon, an apocalypse missile launcher, he feels it as a tension in his back muscles or a mental spit of rage. The weapons on the arms feel like pistols in his own palms. It is completely intuitive. That is why experienced Princeps move with frightening grace. A Titan does not lumber like a robot. It moves like a living creature, copying the micro-motor skills of its pilot. If the Princeps limps in real life, the Titan might have a barely noticeable hitch in one leg, even if its hydraulics are perfect. This is called the ghost of the gate. The hangar gates are fully open. Sunlight, the real harsh radioactive light of this world, bursts inside. For Cassian, it is not blinding. The manifold filters instantly dampen the brightness, tinting the incoming stream a pleasant amber hue. He sees the horizon. Wastelands stretch for hundreds of kilometers. He sees the skeletons of ruined buildings, sees distant mountain ranges. He zooms the image. At a distance of 40 kilometers, he spots a thermal signature, a herd of wild beasts or enemy scouts. Auspexes instantly analyze the target. Threat probability, 0%. Biological fauna. Cassian loses interest. He seeks a worthy target. "We are moving out," the Princeps' voice sounds in the heads of his crew and over escort vox channels. Path clear, glory to the machine. He sends a mental impulse to the legs. Gyroscopes whine, maintaining the balance of a tower 60 meters high. The Titan takes a step from shadow into light. The earth shudders, accepting the weight of a god. Dust rises in clouds around his feet. The wind hits the void shield, scattering in sparks of static electricity. Cassian takes a deep virtual breath. The air of this world is poisoned and unfit for breathing, but through the Titan filters, it tastes sweet. It is the air of war. Inside the cockpit of a Warlord-class Titan, there is no sensation of flight. That is a common misconception of those who have never boarded a god machine. Flight is smoothness. Here, the raw, rhythmic brutality of physics reigns. Every step of Sanctus Ira is the fall of 2,500 tons of metal, interrupted at the last moment by hydraulics and gyroscopes. For the Moderati Primus, occupying the steersman chair a level below the command throne, the world exists as an endless series of impacts. The entire hull shudders. The vibration passes through the chair dampers, through the spine, reverberating in the teeth. The fluid in the Princeps amniotic tank, hanging above the crew's heads like a giant glass heart, ripples. Hiss, hiss. That is the sound of servo motors compensating for the hull's tilt. Boom! Another impact. The right leg has found footing. Inside the cockpit, it smells of recycled air, sweat, and hot electronics. The lighting is dimmed to tactical red so as not to distract from the hololithic displays. 3 Moderati, steersman, sensori, and tacticus sit in a semicircle, backs to the reactor and facing the Princeps. They do not see the street through a window. Their windows are screens speckled with runes and graphs. Outside, a local apocalypse is occurring. The Titan walks through the ruins of an industrial sector. It does not go around buildings, it walks through them. On the steersman's screen, a 5-story hab-block, long abandoned by residents, crumbles into dust at the touch of the void shields. Concrete crumbles, rebar screeches as it tears apart. The Titan does not even slow its pace. For it, this is not an obstacle, but surface texture. But here, inside, the officers' faces express nothing but extreme concentration. No thrill of destruction, only the cold mathematics of motion. Vector 305, gyro correction 0.4 degrees, utters the steersman. His voice is monotone, devoid of intonation. He speaks in tech lingua, a mixture of high Gothic and machine code. Ground unstable, confirming soil subsidence under left heel. Acknowledged. The Princeps' voice sounds not from the tank, but from ceiling vox speakers deep and commanding. Continue movement. The Omnisire will pave the way. Maintain pace. Who are the Moderati? If the Princeps is the soul and will of the Titan, then the Moderati are its autonomic nervous system. Many ask, if the Princeps is connected to the machine directly via the MIU and feels everything as his own body, why does he need assistance? The answer is simple: cognitive overload. Controlling a Warlord-class Titan is a task exceeding the capabilities of a single human brain, even an augmented one. The Princeps sees a target and desires its destruction. He thinks, fire. But someone must calculate the thermal load on the plasma coils so the weapon doesn't explode. Someone must monitor shield balancing, shunting power from aft to fore. Someone must scan the ether for enemy signatures. The bridge crew is divided into strict roles. 1. Moderati steersman. Responsible for movement. A Titan does not walk by itself. Every step is a complex equation of mass balance, inertia, and surface. The steersman ensures the god does not stumble and fall. A fall for a Titan is almost always fatal and shameful. 2. Moderati sensori, eyes and ears. They manage auspexes, radars, and targeting systems. They sift through terabytes of visual noise to find a cloaked enemy. 3. Moderati Tacticus Gunner manages secondary weapon systems, e.g. point defense laser turrets, and monitors reactor and shield status. They are connected to the Titan via their own less powerful interfaces, hard plugs. They feel the machine but do not become it. They serve as a buffer, protecting the Princeps' mind from the flood of routine data, so he can focus on the main thing, killing. The thunder of steps becomes the rhythm of their existence. Boom, pause, boom, pause. Moderati sensori, a woman with pale skin and an implanted monocle instead of a left eye, runs her fingers over the sensor panel. Her hands move with inhuman speed, playing the cogitator keyboard like an organ. Anomaly in sector Gamma 9, she reports. Seismic sensors register a return wave, not an echo of our steps. Classification, asked the Princeps. Signature fuzzy, mass, significant, possibly super heavy armor or another engine. Tension hangs in the cockpit for a second. The word engine in Collegia Titanica jargon means only one thing: an enemy Titan. The steersman does not turn his head, but his fingers grip the walker controls tighter. Raise shields to combat level, commands the Princeps. Steersman, prepare evasion maneuver. Weapon servitors, awaken the spirit of the turbo laser destructor. Outside on the Titan's hull, huge shield generators begin to howl on a high note. The air around Sanctus Ira ionizes. Dust and debris falling on the invisible dome burn up in flashes of violet light. The Titan continues walking, but its gait changes. From the relaxed, crushing tread of a march, it turns into the springy, ready-to-lunge stance of a predator. The steersman feels the hydraulics tense under his hands. He feels the inertia of 1,000-ton legs. Reactor at 60%, reports Tacticus. Temperature rising, machine spirit aroused. They all feel it. Through their sockets, they sense the Titan's emotions. It is not fear. A Titan knows no fear. It is hunger. The ancient machine sensed a rival and wants to prove its superiority. The Moderati exchange glances. In this moment, they are not just colleagues. They are priests locked in a cage with an awakened dragon, and their task is to direct its fire at the enemy before it burns them. Social structure inside a Titan's cockpit is strictly regulated and resembles a feudal one. At the top is the Princeps. During connection, he is a demigod. His orders are not discussed. They are executed like laws of physics. He rarely addresses Moderati by name, more often by function. To him they are just nodes of the system, like pistons or lenses. Below is the Moderati Primus, usually the steersman. He is the first among equals. If the Princeps dies, his brain burns out from psy-shock or overload. The Primus must take control by connecting to the MIU. This is called the rite of succession. Every Moderati dreams of becoming a Princeps, but secretly is terrified of the prospect. Seeing what a human turns into in the amniotic tank. Even lower are Famulus and Servitors. Famulus are tech seers who monitor logistics, ammo, and repairs. They run through corridors inside the Titan, extinguishing fires and patching breaches. Servitors are living furniture. They are literally built into walls and consoles, performing simple computational tasks. This hierarchy is held together by fear and awe. The Titan is a temple, and service in it is a rite. A Moderati's mistake is punished not by reprimand, but by servitorization, lobotomy, and conversion into a cyborg slave. Therefore, absolute ringing discipline reigns in the cockpit. Visual contact. The sensori's voice cuts the silence like a razor. On the main hololithic screen hanging in the air before the Princeps tank, an image unfolds. Through the dust and smoke of the burning city, a silhouette emerges. It is enormous. It is ugly. Its armor is covered in spikes, chains, and chaos sigils. It is a traitor Titan of the Reaver class. Its hunched silhouette resembles a vulture. It stands 3 kilometers away, blocking the main street. Its weapons, a laser blaster and missile launcher, are already aimed at Sanctus Ira. Identification, Legio Mortis, whispers Tacticus, and for the first time a note of human horror slips into his voice. Death's heads. Legio Mortis, the most ancient enemies, traitors who besieged Terra. In the tank above their heads, Princeps Cassian's body jerks in a spasm. The fluid bubbles. The roar of Sanctus Ira's war horn tears through the cockpit, drowning out thought. It is not a human order. It is a machine reflex. The Titan recognized the enemy. "Combat mode!" screams the steersman, his hands flying over the console, reallocating power to the legs for a dash. "Princeps, they have a lock on us." I see their souls. The Princeps' voice now sounds like a rock slide distorted by a Vox grill, and I will extinguish them. Emergency runes light up in the cockpit. Sirens wail, warning of incoming fire. The enemy's first lance beam strikes the void shields of Sanctus Ira, and the world inside the cockpit turns upside down. The march is over. The duel of gods has begun. In the world of the manifold, time flows differently. For Princeps Cassian, seconds stretch into minutes. He sees the battlefield not as chaos of explosions and smoke, but as an ordered, crystal-clear 3D map. The enemy Reaver Titan ahead is the priority target, glowing with threat. But before engaging an equal, a god must clear his path of debris. Cassian's attention shifts down to the foot of the ruins surrounding the plaza. There, in the labyrinth of destroyed buildings, thermal signatures swarm, hundreds of them. This is traitor infantry, renegade guardsmen dressed in rags and scavenged armor. They're deploying heavy bolters and lascannons on rooftops, trying to organize an ambush. To an ordinary tank, they would pose a mortal threat. To Sanctus Ira, they are an annoyance. Insects crawling on boots. Cassian shifts his focus to his right arm. In reality, it is a multi-ton construct suspended on a shoulder mount the size of a locomotive. It is the Vulcan Mega Bolter. In the manifold, Cassian feels it as an extension of his own flesh. He feels the weight of the barrels. He feels the tension of the ammunition feed belt that snakes from the back-mounted magazines over the shoulder into the weapon's breech. He does not pull a trigger. A Titan has no trigger. He simply forms an intent. Purification, he thinks. The barrel block rotation motors come alive. Outside, this sound resembles the whine of a jet turbine taking off. 6 giant barrels begin to spin, merging into a blur. Cassian feels this vibration in his shoulder, a pleasant predatory tremble, anticipation. The target cogitator overlays a kill grid on the infantry cluster. Red runes flash over enemy positions. Destruction probability 99.8%. Cassian mentally snaps his fingers. The Vulcan Megabolter is a weapon that defies conventional logic. A standard Astartes bolter is a weapon of terrifying power, firing 75 caliber rocket-propelled shells. A single bolt hit tears a man in half. The Vulcan is a twin-linked rotary cannon firing shells, each the size of an adult human or a fuel drum. The caliber of these shells is such that a single hit is enough to destroy a light tank or turn an APC into burning scrap. But the horror of the Vulcan is not in the caliber. The horror is in the rate of fire. The weapon is capable of unleashing up to 300 rounds per second. This is not shooting. This is a stream. It is a steel river that erases matter. The ammunition load of a Titan carrying such a weapon takes up half the internal volume of the hull. Thousands of tons of explosives, propellant and adamantium tips are stored in armored bunkers behind the crew's back. The logistics of reloading such a Titan require the efforts of an entire manufactorum and weeks of work by loader servitors. But in those few minutes when the Vulcan sings its song, the cost justifies itself. It is the absolute weapon against anything not protected by void shields. The world is torn in half. The sound of the Vulcan firing cannot be called a knock or a rumble. It is a continuous low-frequency tearing of the atmosphere that causes people within a kilometer radius to bleed from their ears and their teeth to crumble from vibration. A tongue of flame 50 meters long bursts from Sanctus Ira's right arm. Casings, each the size of an urn, pour from the ejector in a solid waterfall, ringing against the pavement like bells. Below, on the ground, hell takes place. A company of traitor infantry simply ceases to exist. They do not die one by one. They disappear by platoons. Vulcan shells turn concrete buildings into dust and organic bodies into red mist. There are no wounded. There are no survivors. The kill zone turns into a lunar landscape churned by explosions. The earth boils. Armored vehicles hiding in the ruins detonate, adding their fireballs to the general chaos. Inside the cockpit, in the silence of the amniotic tank, Cassian feels the recoil. The MIU system translates it not as a blow to the shoulder that would break his collarbone, but as deep, rhythmic pressure on his whole body. It feels like a powerful massage. He watches the red dots on the tactical display go out. 10, 50, 200, 500. The numbers run down at dizzying speed. Sector 4 cleared, he states mentally. Ammo expenditure, 400 units. Efficiency, acceptable. No pity. No realization that he just ended hundreds of lives, each of which had a name, a history, fears. For a Princeps, this is not murder. It is disinfection. It is statistics. He feels like a gardener pruning a dry branch. The branch falls. The tree of the Imperium becomes cleaner. There is a psychological phenomenon known as divine distance. An infantryman sees the eyes of the enemy he stabs with a bayonet. A tanker sees the enemy tank in the sights. A Titan Princeps sees only data. From a height of 60 meters, people turn into abstraction. They are too small to evoke empathy. They are merely blips on the radar, soft targets. This is necessary to preserve sanity. If a Princeps realized every death he brings, every scream crushed by his step, he would go mad in a single battle. The machine spirit encourages this alienation. The Titan despises infantry. For the ancient machine, organic life is slime staining its chassis. The Titan wants to fight its own kind, other machines. Shooting at infantry for it is humiliating, boring work, like a human wiping dust off boots. The Princeps adopts this arrogance. He begins to feel like a god punishing sinners. And therein lies the main danger, forgetting that inside the capsule you are still a mortal piece of meat that can die from one lucky hit to the cockpit. Smoke from the shot slowly clears, carried away by the wind. Where a second ago stood a fortified enemy position, now smokes a wide furrow of molten slag and bones. Cassian grunts with satisfaction, mentally. Left flank clear, he transmits to the crew. Moderati gunner, switch power to turbo lasers. Now we deal with the big game. At this moment, the manifold flashes a warning. Alert, target lock detected. The enemy Reaver Titan, taking advantage of Sanctus Ira being distracted by trash cleanup, has finished targeting. Cassian feels the hairs on his non-existent neck stand up. It is the feeling of being looked at through a sniper rifle scope, but the rifle is the size of a skyscraper. Shields! The steersman's shout breaks into a squeal. Cassian does not have time to react. He was too drunk on his power. Outside, the crack of tearing reality is heard. The enemy laser blaster opens fire. 3 beams of pure energy, each a meter thick, strike the chest of Sanctus Ira. The impact is monstrous. The void shields, absorbing the energy, flare like a birthing star. Inside the cockpit, the lights die, replaced by an emergency red strobe. Sparks shower from the ceiling. Cassian in his tank screams. This time the scream is real. Pain pierces his chest, though his body is intact. The MIU translates the shield overload as the sensation of his skin being doused in acid. The god staggers. The battle has truly begun. In the world of the manifold, where information has taste and color, the impact of an enemy laser feels not like a burn. It feels like a tear in the fabric of existence. A second ago, Cassian was omnipotent. He floated in an ocean of data, invulnerable and immense. And then the universe hit him with a sledgehammer. The sound inside the skull is like the cracking of ice breaking on a frozen lake, only 1,000 times louder. The golden sphere of perception surrounding the Princeps' mind fractures. Visual senses go blind for a split second, flooding consciousness with the white noise of static. Cassian does not see the explosion outside. He feels the blow. 3 beams from the enemy Reaver's laser blaster slam into the frontal projection of Sanctus Ira's void shields. Energy sufficient to vaporize a city block hits an invisible wall. Inside the amniotic tank, the Princeps' body jerks in a brutal spasm. His back arches, arms, stumps, fly up in a protective gesture, trying to cover a face that isn't there. The water around him instantly turns cloudy. It is not dirt, it is a release of adrenaline, cortisol and neuropeptides that his endocrine system dumped into the solution. In response to phantom trauma, the transparent fluid becomes milky white, swirling in vortices around his convulsing body. He opens his mouth and a bubble of silent scream bursts from his throat. He feels as though his chest has been opened with a red-hot can opener. He feels his ribs are broken and his lungs are burning. But this is a lie, his body is intact. It is the Titan's soul that hurts, and this pain is transmitted directly into the pilot's nervous system. Many mistakenly believe it is simply a force field, a wall of energy that stops bullets. The reality is far more terrifying and complex. A void shield is a gravitic energy barrier of immense density. Shield generators create a layered energy field that separates the machine from reality. When a shell or laser beam strikes the shield, its kinetic and thermal energy is instantly absorbed and transmuted into light and heat. The excess entropy is then vented directly into the warp, keeping the generator from melting. It is not a wall, it is an event horizon. That is why working shields smell of ozone and something rotten. It is the smell of reality breach. Every hit on the shield is a microscopic opening of a door to hell. Shields have a layered structure. When one layer overloads, it collapses, and the generator needs time to recharge. In that moment, the Titan becomes vulnerable. Shield management is the art of juggling layers of reality to prevent the enemy from finding the soft meat of the armor. Frontal hemisphere shields at 40%. The voice of Moderati Tacticus breaks through the veil of pain. Controlled chaos reigns inside the cockpit. The impact was of such force that even the gyroscopes failed to compensate fully. The entire command deck tilted, sparks shower from overloaded consoles, illuminating the gloom with magnesium flashes. The smell of ozone becomes unbearable. Cassian forces himself to breathe. Inhale, fluid in the lungs. Exhale. He must pull himself together. Pain is just information. The flesh is weak. He repeats the mantra to himself. Pain is an illusion of the senses. I am iron. He mentally palpates his chest. Where the lasers struck, the void shields flicker. They have thinned. He feels a draft, the cold breath of death seeking a crack in his armor. The generators howl, trying to restore the field. Divert power from motive drives to shields, commands Cassian. His mental voice trembles, but the order is crisp. Enemy is recharging. We have 5 seconds. He feels the machine spirit's response. Sanctus Ira is furious. The machine does not understand the concept of tactical retreat. It is insulted that someone dared to touch it. The beast inside Cassian's mind roars, demanding blood. It wants to rush forward, into melee, to tear the offender apart with a chainsword. Cassian has to exert a titanic effort of will to hold the machine in place. Stand, he mentally screams, and this order echoes as a migraine in his temples. We are not beasts, we are warriors. Stand. The Titan freezes, its servos groaning from contained energy. Neural feedback is the curse of the Princeps. The MIU, Mind Impulse Unit system, is a two-way street. To control a Titan with the grace of a living being, the brain must receive full sensory information. But the brain does not know how to distinguish servo damage from bone fracture. It interprets data in the only way available to it, through pain. When a Titan's arm is torn off, the Princeps feels phantom amputation of such force that he can die from pain shock. His heart can stop simply because the brain decides the body is dead. But there is a more terrible threat: burnout. If a Titan's reactor explodes, or if the machine is hit by a psychoactive weapon, like the scream of a Chaos Titan, the feedback pulse along the neural cables will turn the pilot's brain to ash faster than the blast wave destroys the cockpit. There are safety measures, synaptic cutouts. Theoretically, they should disconnect the pilot at critical overload. Practically, they often fail or trigger too late, leaving the Princeps a vegetable with a burned-out cerebral cortex trapped in his own body. Every battle is a risk not only to the body, but to the very essence of self. The manifold restores itself. The golden grid of reality is overlaid on the world again, though now it trembles like an image on a bad screen. Cassian sees his enemy. The traitor Titan stands amidst the ruins, shrouded in smoke from cooling its weapons. Its shields shine full spectrum, fresh and unbreached. It is preparing for a second volley. Cassian feels the heat building in his own left arm, where the turbo laser destructor is located. This is a weapon of a completely different class than the Vulcan. It is a miniature sun ready to break loose. The machine spirit whines with impatience, offering a solution. Shoot, burn them, release me. But Cassian sees not only the enemy. Thanks to height and the manifold, he sees what the enemy does not. Behind the Reaver's back, hidden by a collapsed skyscraper, stands a fuel storage structure. Huge Prometheum tanks, half buried in rubble. The enemy thinks he is in cover. Cassian smiles in his tank. The fluid around his mouth bubbles. Moderati gunner. His voice is cold and sharp as steel. Belay targeting the hull. Target coordinates Alpha 04, fuel sector. But, Princeps, the Moderati objects, checking data. That is a miss. We will not hit the Titan. Do as I say. In the tank, the Princeps clenches a non-existent fist. The pain in his chest from the shield impact still pulses, dull and aching, like a reminder of mortality. But now this pain is fuel. He feels the magnetic coils of the Annihilator on his left arm begin to sing the song of death. Plasma in the pre-chamber heats to the temperature of a star's core. Cassian focuses his wrath. You struck me, traitor, he thinks, looking at the shimmering silhouette of the enemy. Now watch your world burn. Inside the amniotic tank, it is getting hot. This is not a cooling system failure. It is a psychosomatic reaction. Cassian feels the fluid temperature rising, as if he is swimming in boiling water, though the servitor sensors show normal levels. The cause of the heat is in his head. The Titan Sanctus Ira has fully awakened. The enemy laser strike didn't just strip the shields, it insulted the God machine. And now the God wants to answer. But not in the way the human plans. In the manifold, the turbo laser destructor's targeting reticle aimed at the fuel tanks begins to tremble. At first, barely noticeably, then stronger. The crosshair drifts left, toward the enemy Titan. Correction! Cassian barks mentally. Hold target! The crosshair returns to place, but with resistance, as if Cassian is trying to turn a rusty valve. A second later, it crawls left again. The Titan is resisting. In Cassian's mind, there are no words, but there are images. They flash as vivid, violent hallucinations. He sees himself running. He feels the inertia of a massive body slamming into the enemy. He hears the screech of tearing metal. He tastes oil and blood on his lips. Charge! Impact! Death! This is the Titan's desire. It wants melee. It wants to get close and crush the enemy with its weight. tear it apart with a power fist. Shooting from afar is cowardice to it. Cassian grits non-existent teeth. "No!" he screams inside the neural network. "We are not beasts. We stand!" The pressure in his skull intensifies. It feels as if an ocean is being forced into his head. The machine's rage is a tsunami threatening to wash away the fragile human personality. In the tank, the Princeps' body begins to convulse. His stumps twitch, hitting the glass. Life support monitors turn an alarming orange. Pulse, 180, pressure critical. Nature of the beast. Subject, machine spirit personality, Princeps, Maximus archive. The machine spirit of a warlord-class titan is neither a loyal dog nor an obedient soldier. It is an ancient, arrogant dragon. Over thousands of years of service, the titan's personality is shaped by battles and previous pilots. Sanctus Ira is a veteran. It has destroyed cities. It has fought demons. It is used to dominating. It has its own code of honor, understandable only to machines. For it to take damage and not strike back blow for blow is intolerable humiliation. Aggression is a factory setting. The god machine is built for war and it loves its job. When a Princeps connects to a titan, he is not just operating a joystick, he enters a symbiosis. But in this symbiosis, there is always a struggle for leadership. If the Princeps' will falters, if he gives in to the machine's anger, absorption will occur. The human will forget tactics, forget orders, forget who he is. He will turn into a mindless berserker who simply drives the machine forward until it dies. That is why Princeps candidates are selected not for physical strength or intellect, but for willpower. They must be mental titans capable of saying "sit" to a creature that can crush a mountain. The battle shifts to the mental plane. Inside his consciousness, Cassian builds a wall. He visualizes it as a dam of cold grey concrete blocking a river of lava. The lava is the rage of Sanctus Ira. It slams into the wall. Cassian feels every hit as a migraine attack that darkens his vision. Forward, kill, rend. The Titan's impulses try to hijack motor functions. The Titan's left leg in reality takes a half step forward, churning up the asphalt. The steersman in the cockpit cries out, "Princeps! Gyros destabilized! We are losing the horizon! Are you closing in?" "Belay that!" Cassian's voice on the Vox sounds hoarse, like grinding gears. "Hold position, I have him!" Cassian dives deeper into the interface. He seeks the core of the machine spirit. It feels like a white-hot ball of light in the center of his mind. "Listen to me, Ancient One," whispers Cassian, putting all his authority, all his 120 years of service into this thought. "You are blind. You see only the enemy. I see victory." The Titan growls back. The image of the burning enemy becomes brighter. "He is vulnerable. He mocks us." "He is a trap," parries Cassian. "If we go forward, we open our flank. We die. Death does not matter, only glory." Cassian realizes logic is powerless here. You cannot argue with a god using arguments. You must break him. The Princeps does what he was taught in the Schola Progenium. He uses pain. He opens the neural floodgates. He allows the pain from the reactor overload and shield impact, which he had been blocking, to flood back into the system. But not into his brain, into the Titan's brain. He projects the sensation of his own human fragility, his fear of death onto the immortal machine. "Feel this," he screams mentally. "If I die, you sleep forever. You will be left to rust in this hangar. No war, only darkness." The relationship between Princeps and Titan is often compared to a marriage, but it is a marriage of convenience seasoned with Stockholm Syndrome. The Titan needs the Princeps. Without an organic brain, its reactor is dampened, its systems sleep. The machine spirit fears this sleep. For an immortal being, periods of downtime between wars are a little death. They crave connection just as strongly as the Princeps craves the Titan's power. This interdependence is the pilot's main leverage. I am your key to reality. Without me, you are just a statue. But this is a dangerous game. Titans are vindictive. If a Princeps punishes the machine too often or suppresses it too roughly, the spirit may harbor a grudge. And at the most critical moment of battle, when the pilot needs an extra % of power or a miracle of maneuverability, the Titan might simply refuse. The art of the Princeps is a balance between tyranny and partnership. Now Cassian is crossing the line, using the fear of oblivion as a whip. The strike of fear works. The wave of lava retreats. Sanctus Ira freezes. In the mental space, a disgruntled but submissive hum is heard. The beast has acknowledged the leash is still on its neck. The Titan's left leg returns to position. The hull levels out. The trembling of the targeting reticle stops. Now it is frozen perfectly still on the coordinates Cassian chose. Alpha 04, fuel tanks. In the tank, Cassian exhales fluid. He feels drained. This second of struggle took more strength from him than a marathon. His hands shake phantomly, but the aim holds dead steady. "Good boy," he whispers to the machine, mixing affection with mockery. "Now do what you were made for." The enemy Reaver Titan finishes recharging. Its weapons begin to glow, preparing for a second volley. It does not know it is already dead. It thinks Sanctus Ira hesitated due to a system glitch. It does not know that this hesitation was the moment a man defeated a god. "Moderati gunner." Cassian's voice is hard as diamond. "Turbo laser destructor, maximum charge. Fire." He feels his left arm filling with unbearable heat. High-capacity capacitors scream as they channel gigawatts into the focusing lenses. The air warps around the twin barrels from the heat build-up. Cassian forms the mental impulse. This is not pressing a button. This is release. He unclenches the mental fist, holding back the energy. Voom crack! The flash is so bright that even the manifold filters darken to black. Two blinding lances of pure, coherent light erupt specifically from the twin barrels, instantly connecting with the target area. The twin beams slice through the air, flashing past the enemy Titan's hull in an instant. The enemy crew has no time to react. A miss. The energy lances strike the earth behind them. Into the Prometheum tanks. A second of silence. And then the world turns white. The outside world is burning. The explosion of fuel tanks caused by the turbo laser destructor shot has turned sector Alpha 04 into a firestorm. But inside the command deck of Sanctus Ira, its own quiet hell is unfolding. And this hell is far more terrifying because there is no escape from it. The air in the cockpit has become thick as syrup. The climate control system, designed to maintain sterile cool, gave up long ago. The temperature inside the armored capsule has passed 60 degrees Celsius and continues to rise. This is not the dry heat of a desert. This is a humid, suffocating steam room. Condensation runs down the walls, drips from ceiling beams, hisses as it hits the hot casings of consoles. It smells of burning insulation, overheated plastic, and, most nauseatingly, sweat and fear. The three Moderati, strapped into their chairs, look like martyrs on the rack. Their uniform tunics are soaked through and cling to their bodies. Faces are red, glistening with grease and moisture. The Moderati steersman breathes heavily, wheezing like a fish thrown ashore. Every breath burns the lungs. His hands slip on the control yokes, leaving wet trails. He constantly has to wipe sweat pouring into his eyes, but it doesn't help. Salt corrodes the mucous membranes, blinding him no worse than an enemy laser. But in the center of this inferno, rising above the suffering of mortals, hangs the amniotic tank. Inside, it reigns perfect homeostasis. The fluid is cooled by a separate circuit. Princeps Cassian floats in blissful cool, protected by thick glass and the privilege of his rank. He sees the suffering of his crew through the manifold, not as people in pain, but as biological components operating at reduced efficiency. The red auras of their bodies pulse in the thermal spectrum, signaling critical organism overheating. Reactor temperature, 108% of nominal. The voice of Moderati Tacticus is weak. He barely moves his tongue. Cooling system overloaded. Princeps, we need a vent. Why do Titans overheat? It is a question of simple physics elevated to the absolute of Imperial gigantomania. A plasma reactor is a sun in a box. It generates enough energy to power a small city. But energy is never converted with 100% efficiency. Part of it always turns into heat. At rest, a Titan dissipates this heat through radiators on its back. But in combat, when void shields absorb gigajoules of enemy fire and weapons spew plasma, heat generation jumps exponentially. Ceramite armor, which protects so well against shells, plays a cruel joke. It acts like a thermos. It holds heat inside. The Titan literally stews in its own juices. There is a procedure called emergency venting. The Titan opens armored shutters on its back and ejects superheated steam and plasma into the atmosphere. This instantly cools the core. But this has a price. First, the Titan becomes visible in the thermal spectrum to every enemy on the planet. Second, and most importantly, during venting, void shields must be weakened or disabled as they interfere with matter ejection. Venting in combat is a moment of maximum vulnerability. It is like a knight taking off his helmet in the middle of a melee to catch his breath. Heat vent, repeats the steersman, his voice breaking into a cough. Princeps, please, we are boiling in here. Cassian in his tank analyzes the situation. The enemy Titan is damaged by the tank explosion, but not destroyed. Its shields flicker, but its weapons are still active. If Sanctus Ira opens vent ports and drops shields now, the Reaver's return volley will burn through the armor and detonate the reactor. It is mathematics. Probability of Titan destruction during venting, 46%. Probability of crew death from heat stroke while maintaining seal, 80% within 10 minutes. The choice is obvious for the machine. Venting denied. The Princeps' voice sounds in the crew's heads, cold and crisp, contrasting with the heat in the cockpit. Hold shields at maximum. But the temperature? Redirect cooling circuit from habitation deck to shield magnetic coils, commands Cassian. It is a death sentence. The Princeps just ordered the last remnants of the life support system to be shut off and precious coolant, liquid nitrogen and ammonia, to be diverted to cooling the field generators. This means heat from the reactor hall will no longer be vented outside. It will be redirected inside, into the cockpit. The Moderati look at the tank with horror. They realize what just happened. They have been sacrificed. Warm air stops blowing from the floor vents. Hot steam begins to pour from them. The temperature jumps from 60 to 75 degrees in seconds. A servitor embedded in the wall next to the door begins to convulse. Its organic brain is boiling. Black blood flows from its ears. It goes quiet, hanging on wires. The smell of death becomes distinct. In the philosophy of the Adeptus Mechanicus, there is a concept: flesh is currency. In the Imperium, human life is cheap, so cheap that it is often easier to replace a person than a broken bolt. Titan crews are elite, high-class specialists whose training took years. But compared to a Titan, compared to a relic that cannot be reproduced, which is 10,000 years old, any Moderati knows his life belongs to the machine. He is not here to survive. He is here so the machine continues to function. There are protocols whereby, in case of fire, the automatic fire suppression system vents oxygen from compartments, killing the crew to save the equipment. Cassian's order is not sadism, it is doctrine. Better 3 die than the god falls. The Princeps, having lost humanity through mergers, sees his assistants merely as wetware processors. If one burns out, he will be replaced after the battle. If the Titan explodes, it is a loss for all humanity. This is logic against which there are no arguments. But dying from this logic is terrifying. Princeps, whispers the Censori. Blood is running from her nose. I am losing visual contact. Eyes. Her bionic eye works, but the organic one is failing due to heat stroke. The brain begins to shut down. Cassian feels irritation. The efficiency of the Censori node is dropping. Activate stimulants, he commands. Inject combat cocktail. Do not sleep. Moderati chairs are equipped with injectors. On the Princeps' command, needles dig into the necks and backs of the dying officers. A mixture of adrenaline, synthetic caffeine and painkillers, onslaught, is pumped into their boiling blood. It is cruel. It gives them no relief from the heat. It simply prevents them from losing consciousness. It forces their hearts to beat at a furious pace, wringing the last resources from exhausted bodies. The Censori gasps convulsively. Her eyes snap open. In them is pure horror and the madness of pain, but her hands return to the console. Visual contact restored, she rasps. Cassian is satisfied. In the manifold, he sees the shields of Sanctus Ira filling with power again. Coolant redirection worked. Generators are cooling. Behind his back, in reality, servitors begin to melt. Skin on their faces bubbles. Tech priests in their thick robes fall to their knees, reciting litanies while their lungs burn. But the Titan stands. Cassian shifts his gaze to the enemy. The enemy Reaver is still trying to get out of the fire trap. You thought fire was your ally? Thinks Cassian. I was born in fire. My crew burns so I can kill. He feels a strange, twisted unity with his team. They burn inside him like coal in a locomotive's firebox. They are fuel, and he will burn them to ash if needed for victory. Suddenly, a sound is heard that drowns out even the reactor hum. It is the sound of ruptured organics. One of the lower loader servitors, responsible for lubricant supply, failed. Its cranium depressurized from internal pressure. Its body falls onto the main power distribution console. Blood and brain fluid flood the contacts. Sparks. Short circuit. Lights in the cockpit die completely. In Cassian's manifold, a black hole appears. The right side void shield control sector goes dark. "Failure!" screams the steersman. "Right shields down! We are open!" Cassian sees the enemy Titan's turret turning. The Apocalypse missile launcher looks straight at the unprotected right flank. The price for godhood turned out to be too high, and it must be paid right now. Time compresses to a single point. In the world of the manifold, where seconds stretch into eternity, Cassian sees death flying toward him. The enemy Reaver twists its hunched torso. Hatches open. Cassian sees the missile engines ignite. Dozens of fiery dots. A wolf pack of warheads rushes toward the unprotected armor of Sanctus Ira. Inside the cockpit, Moderati scream. They see death on their screens. Inside the tank, Cassian is silent. There is no fear. Fear was left behind in the world of flesh, along with the sweat and blood of his dying crew. Too late for defense, he thinks. So, a trade. He does not try to dodge. A warlord-class Titan does not know how to dance. Instead, he takes a step toward the blow. He pivots the torso, presenting the thickest frontal armor possible to the missiles in a fraction of a second, and simultaneously he activates the carapace weapons, the shoulder-mounted turbo-laser destructors. These guns have been silent the entire battle. They waited for the perfect moment. They waited for the enemy to open up for an attack. To fire missiles, the Reaver had to momentarily weaken its own shields. This is the chink in the armor Cassian was looking for. "Die," he whispers. The term engine kill is the highest honor in the Collegia Titanica. It is not the destruction of a tank or a bunker, it is the killing of an equal. God machines are incredibly durable. Their systems are triply redundant. Their armor can withstand a nuclear explosion. To kill a Titan, simply shooting at it is not enough. You must hit a vital organ. A Titan has two. One, plasma reactor, the heart, located in the back. A hit there causes a critical chain reaction. Two, MyU cable or command deck, the brain, located in the head. Decapitating a Titan kills it instantly, leaving the hull standing as a monument to itself. The turbo lasers Cassian uses are surgical instruments. Unlike the brute force of bolters or plasma, lasers hit a point. They burn a hole 1 meter in diameter, but 10 meters deep. They are perfect for lobotomy. This is a duel of snipers weighing thousands of tons. Who shoots first? Who blinks? Impact. The enemy missiles slam into the right shoulder and flank of Sanctus Ira. In reality, armor ruptures. Multi-layered ceramite and adamantium crumble like dry clay. Explosions tear out chunks of plating the size of trucks. Fire enters the starboard corridors, incinerating servitors and repair crews. The Titan staggers, its gyros howling, trying to maintain balance under the hail of blows. In the manifold, Cassian feels his shoulder breaking. He feels his side being torn by red-hot hooks. The pain is blinding. It is white, pure, absolute. But he does not release the target lock. Through the veil of pain, through the shaking, through the wail of sirens in the cockpit, he holds focus. 2 beams from the turbo lasers burst from Sanctus Ira's shoulder turrets. They pass through the smoke of explosions. They ignore the Reaver's weakened shields. They slam into its head, the low-set, bestial cockpit of the traitor. The first beam vaporizes the armored glass and faceplate. The second beam enters inside, turning the enemy bridge, its crew and its Princeps into steam instantly. But the beam does not stop. It passes through the neck and strikes downwards into the upper part of the reactor. Time freezes. The enemy Titan freezes mid-step. Its weapons droop. And then its back turns into a star. Reactor magnetic containment fails. The explosion tears the Reaver's hull from the inside. The huge machine swells like a balloon before bursting in a fountain of white-blue fire and metal. The shockwave knocks infantry off their feet for kilometers around. A plasma mushroom cloud rises into the stratosphere. The death of a Titan is an event not only physical but psychic. A machine with a soul does not die quietly. When the reactor explodes, the machine's spirit dies in agony. This death scream is not heard with ears. It is heard with the soul. Psychers in orbit can feel the moment of a Titan's death as a prick of an ice needle in the heart. For other Princeps connected to the manifold, it sounds like a deafening gong. But for the victor, for the one who dealt the blow, this scream sounds like music. The victor's machine spirit consumes the echo of the loser's death. It is an act of cannibalism on a metaphysical level. In ancient Mechanicus texts, this is called the communion of steel. Inside the cockpit of Sanctus Ira, there is darkness. Emergency lighting flickers. Moderati lie on their consoles, unconscious or dead from overload. But in the tank, something terrible is happening. Cassian feels the enemy's death, and Sanctus Ira feels it. The moment the enemy signal dies, the pain in Cassian's shoulder vanishes. Its place is taken by euphoria. This is not human joy. This is not the pride of a soldier who did his duty. This is machine joy. Cassian's neurotransmitters are flooded with a cocktail of endorphins, dopamine, and synthetic stimulants, generated by the life support system on the machine spirit's order. It is a feeling of absolute divine triumph, the sensation that you are the pinnacle of evolution, that you are the universe's alpha predator. The machine spirit roars in his head, but now it is not an angry growl, it is laughter. Deep rumbling, metallic laughter of a satisfied killer. "We are," booms the voice in Cassian's head. "They are nothing. We are eternal." Cassian's body in the tank arches in ecstasy. His eyes under closed lids roll madly. He opens his mouth, and from his throat, which has not uttered sounds for decades, bursts a gurgling, wet laugh. He laughs, blowing bubbles into the amniotic fluid. He laughs while his crew dies of wounds. He laughs, looking at the burning wreckage of the enemy. This is the moment of madness. In this instant, Cassian Dracos, the man, finally dies. Only the avatar of Sanctus Ira remains. He no longer wants to go outside. He does not want to return to the world of weak humans, where there is gravity and old age. He wants to stay here forever, in this fire, in this power. "More," whispers his mind, merging with the machine. "I want more." The enemy Titan burns out. Sanctus Ira, smoking, wounded with a torn shoulder, raises its head to the sky and emits the war horn. Louder, longer, shaking the dust off the camera lens. A cry of victory that chills the blood. The god has fed. The battle is over. Sanctus Ira stands in the repair dock. Its armor still ticks, cooling after the hellish heat of combat, and steam rises from the hull. But the machine's heart, the plasma reactor, has already been put into sleep mode. The hum that filled Cassian's consciousness for the last few hours fades. It is as if a huge orchestra slowly, instrument by instrument, stopped playing, leaving the listener in deafening silence. For Princeps Cassian, this moment is more terrifying than the battle itself. He hangs in his amniotic tank. The water around him has become dirty with metabolic waste and hormonal secretions. He feels reality beginning to leak through the barriers of the manifold. It feels like a draft in a warm house, like the smell of rot in a blooming garden. He clings to the remnants of the connection. He tries to hold on to the sight of the auspexes, showing him the starry sky. He tries to hold on to the sensation of titanic strength in his hydraulic muscles, but the machine's spirit is falling asleep. The beast is sated, tired, and retreats into the darkness of the cogitator's subconscious, leaving the human alone. No. Cassian's mental plea is pathetic and helpless. Don't go. Don't leave me here. But protocol is protocol. The hermetic shutters of the cradle open with a hiss. Tech priest chirurgeons enter the cockpit. In their white, oil-splattered robes, they look like executioners or like vultures. They speak no words. They know their job. They approach the capsule. Their manipulators reach for the sockets on Cassian's skull. A Princeps dependence on his Titan is not chemical, but it is stronger than any drug known to humanity. Chemistry acts on the body's receptors. The Titan acts on the soul's receptors. Imagine you were blind, deaf and paralyzed all your life, and suddenly, for a few hours, you were given the body of an Olympian god. You can see atoms. You can hear the whisper of stars. You can destroy a mountain with a single blow of your hand. You are immortal, huge, perfect, and then you are returned to a broken, old, sick body. This contrast causes profound psychological shock known as disembodiment syndrome. The Princeps brain, accustomed to processing terabytes of data per second, suddenly finds itself in a sensory vacuum. The real world seems dull, flat, grey, and incredibly cramped to him. Many Princeps commit suicide outside the capsule simply because they cannot bear the wretchedness of human existence. They live from connection to connection. The Titan is their life. The hangar is death's waiting room. The priest's hands touch the MIU crown. Cassian feels their touch not on his skin, but as the intrusion of static into a clear signal. Initiate disconnection protocol. The Magos's rasping voice sounds in reality, but Cassian hears it through external microphones like hammer blows on glass. No, leave me! He tries to scream through the vox, but his speakers are already disabled. He tries to strike them with a power fist, but he no longer has a fist. He has only stumps of arms that helplessly churn the murky water. The first needle withdraws. Sight goes dark. The manifold, the magnificent, shining sphere of data collapses into a point and vanishes. Cassian goes blind. For a second, there is absolute darkness, and then his human eyes, unaccustomed to light, begin to see blurry, murky spots. The light of the lamps in the hangar seems unbearably dim and dirty, jaundiced. The second needle withdraws. Hearing fades. The roar of the reactor, the song of gyroscopes, the whisper of wind on armor, everything disappears. Instead of the symphony of war, he hears pitiful sounds, the beep of medical monitors, the shuffling of feet, his own wheezing breath through the tube. Silence presses on his ears. It feels cottony, suffocating. The third, main needle, the spirit needle, withdraws from the base of the skull. This is the most terrible part. The link with Sanctus Ira is severed. It feels like physical amputation, as if the heart was torn out of the chest, but he was left alive. The presence of the god, that powerful ancient mind that was we with him, disappears. Cassian is left alone, absolutely cosmically alone. Inside his skull, he hears only the echo of his own pathetic thoughts. Why do Princeps hate ordinary people so much? Why are they so arrogant and cold? It is not pride, it is a defense mechanism. To a being that was a titan, an ordinary human looks like an insect. Like a sack of meat stuffed with bones and fluids that fusses, eats, sleeps and dies. Their problems seem petty, their passions ridiculous. You are worried that you are cold? I burned in the plasma of a nuclear explosion and laughed. You are afraid of the dark. I stared into the warp and didn't blink. Returning to the human state is accompanied by severe depression. Colors seem faded, food has no taste, emotions are dulled. Princeps call reality the grey world. They exist in it like ghosts, conserving energy, lying in their tanks or moving in exoskeletons, with empty eyes staring into nowhere. The only thing that sparks life in them is the sight of their titan. They can watch the sleeping machine for hours, stroke its armor, whisper to it. It is the love of a junkie for the needle, the love of a prisoner for his cell, if that cell is a palace. The needles are extracted. The crown lifts up, dripping cerebrospinal fluid and blood. Cassian floats in the tank. His body is racked by violent shivering, nervous system withdrawals. Cramps seize atrophied muscles. Phantom pains return with renewed vigor. It feels like his legs, which are gone, are burning with fire. It feels like his shoulder, which was pierced by missiles on the Titan, is shattered, though there isn't a scratch on the human body. He opens his eyes. Through the murky glass, he sees the Magos's face, a steel mask devoid of emotion. Subject stabilized, vitals within normal limits, prepare for transport to stasis chamber. Cassian wants to kill him. He wants to tear this priest to pieces. But he cannot even move a finger. He is weak. He is insignificant. Tears flow from the Princeps' eyes. They mix with the amniotic fluid. These are not tears of pain. These are tears of impotent rage and grief. I was a god. His lips move around the breathing tube, but there is no sound. Put me back. Servitors disconnect the tank. The grav platform lifts him again. They wheel him away from the cockpit, away from Sanctus Ira. The last thing Cassian sees before the elevator doors close is the control console, which is now dark and dead. And in this darkness he feels the cold that chills to the bone and which no blanket in the galaxy can warm. The only warmth remained there in the nuclear heart that now sleeps. And Cassian closes his eyes, dreaming of only one thing, that the sleep passes quickly. The Legia repair dock looks nothing like the temple where Sanctus Ira awakened. This place is devoid of pathos and incense. It is an operating room for gods, dirty, noisy, and utilitarian. The air here does not smell of frankincense. It stinks of cooling slag, acidic welding flux, and superheated hydraulic fluid. The Titan stands in the center of a giant well. Around it, like a web spun by mechanical spiders, rises scaffolding of adamantium. Hundreds of worker servitors and engineer priests crawl over its hull. Welding flashes in cascades of white-blue sparks, raining down like falling stars. The sound is unimaginable, the screech of grinding discs the size of truck wheels, the squeal of pneumatic hammers driving rivets, the drone of cranes lifting new armor plates. Sanctus Ira is wounded. Its right shoulder, having taken the brunt of the Apocalypse missiles, is a gruesome sight. The ceramite armor is torn away, exposing the machine's meat, a tangle of power cables, skeletal frame bones, and soot-blackened cooling lines. It looks like an open fracture on a giant. Black, oily smoke still rises from the wound, though the fire was extinguished long ago. But the Titan does not look defeated. It looks like a predator licking its wounds after a successful hunt. It sleeps, but there is a threat in this sleep. Its posture, even supported by grav clamps, radiates latent power. Below, at floor level, A grav platform moves slowly. On it, inside his murky, scratched amniotic tank, lies Princeps Cassian. He is being taken to the stasis chambers, to a place where he will dreamless sleep until he is summoned again. Medics bustle around him, checking tubes and catheters, but he does not look at them. His gaze, clouded by fatigue and narcotics, is fixed on one point. Upwards, to where 60 meters above the floor, amidst scaffolding and smoke, towers the head of his Titan. Service unto the end, sarcophagus entombment. What is the fate of a Princeps? It is a question rarely asked in the propaganda pics of the Imperium. They show heroes in shining uniforms. The reality is the quiet horror of slow decay. A Princeps's career is linear and inevitable. First he walks on his own legs, then, as mergers with the machine become deeper and the body fails, he is moved to a chair. Then to an exoskeleton. The final stage is the amniotic tank. But there is a stage after the finale. When the body fails completely, when the brain can no longer withstand disconnection from the MIU, the Princeps is not retired. Such veterans are too valued. Their experience is irreplaceable. They undergo the procedure of sarcophagus entombment. The tank is welded shut. Life support systems are integrated directly into the Titan's hull. The Princeps ceases to be a separate being. He becomes literally the brain of the machine, floating in fluid somewhere deep in the torso. He will never see a human face again. He will never hear human speech again, except via Vox. He will live forever, or until the Titan is destroyed, merged with the machine spirit into a single whole. Cassian knows he is close to this. 1 or 2 more campaigns, and he will not leave the tank. And to be honest, he is waiting for it. The platform stops before the medical bay airlock. Cassian makes an effort. He lifts his stump and presses it against the glass from the inside. This gesture is full of such longing and tenderness that even the lobotomized servitor pushing the platform freezes for a second, as if a glitch in its program forced it to feel the shadow of an alien emotion. Cassian looks at the empty eye sockets of the Titan. Now they are dark. The reactor is dampened to minimum, powering only emergency systems and repair droids. The manifold is off, there is no link. But Cassian feels it. It is like phantom pain in an amputated limb, but in reverse. He feels the phantom presence of a soul where there is now emptiness. He knows the beast is sleeping too, and in this sleep the beast sees fire. "I will return," whispers Cassian. Air bubbles burst from his mouth, tickling his face. "Sleep, brother. Let the smiths patch your hide. Let them pour new plasma into your veins." His thoughts tangle. The line between I and it has erased completely. We are not finished yet. The galaxy is still full of enemies, and we will burn them all, you and I. The Magos medic walking alongside notices activity on the Princeps electroencephalogram. "Patient destabilized," he creaks. "Elevated beta wave levels." He is talking. "To whom?" asks an assistant. The Magos looks up at the looming bulk of the war machine. To himself, or to who he thinks he is. Increased sedative dosage. He needs to forget. There is a legend whispered among young Moderati. They say that even when a Princeps dies, part of his soul remains in the Titan. Imperial cogitators are built on biological components, neural memory casts, behavioral patterns, reflexes. All this is recorded in the core of the machine spirit. A Titan that is 10,000 years old carries within it the echoes of hundreds of Princeps. It is a choir of ghosts. Sometimes, in the silence of the hangar, Engineers hear voices coming from the speakers of a powered-down machine. Sometimes a Titan might independently turn its head or aim a weapon, though there is no one in the cockpit. The Mechanicus calls this divine intervention. Crews call it the echo. Cassian does not fear death because he knows he will not disappear. He will simply become another voice in this choir. He will become part of Sanctus Ira forever. This is his form of immortality. The injector sprays a murky fluid into the feeding tube. Cassian's consciousness begins to drift away. The grey world around him darkens. The pain in his body subsides, replaced by cottony emptiness. He looks at the Titan one last time. Is he imagining it, or did a dull red light flash for a second deep within the armoured eye sockets? An answer? A farewell? Or just a reflection of welding? It doesn't matter. The flesh is weak, is the fading mind's last thought. Iron is eternal. The Princeps' eyes close. His body relaxes, hanging in the solution like a broken doll. The platform hisses into the stasis bay airlock. Heavy doors close, cutting him off from the hangar. The camera slowly pans up, away from the closed doors, flying through welding sparks, through smoke and scaffolding. It rises to the Titan's head. Workers continue to bang hammers, repairing the armor. But inside the cockpit, it is dark and quiet. Only on the main control panel, under a layer of dust and soot, slowly, once a minute, a single small green rune blinks. Systems standby. The Titan is not dead. The Titan is waiting. It knows its pilot will return. War is eternal, which means they are eternal too. The lights in the hangar slowly fade, leaving the god machine alone with its dreams of destruction.